Shocking stuff this weekend about Man United, isn't it? Arnautovic is not going to happen now, but be linked with Arnautovic. Rabiot might sign. You got the John Murphy going over to speak to Rabiot. Like the whole thing is just, to me, it's just crumbling. I can't believe Man United are in this position they're in. Well, obviously, if you look at the last 10 years, you can't believe it. But for a club of such a global stature to be in this position, with the season already underway and losing the first game and going to Brentford this evening.
Funny enough, Rabiot, like if you weren't, Rabiot in terms of his kind of personality off the pitch, and anyone who's been represented by a complex mother in his football dealings obviously comes with a bit of a squiggle, and he comes with the health warning. Strangely enough, in terms of his ability, I think he'd be a great boost to Man United in terms of his playing ability. But as you mentioned, JD, this is where you're at. And I didn't watch the game against Brighton, but by all accounts it was very apparent early on Brighton are a better team than Man United at the moment. That's where we're at.
Well, it's more like United finished second only a couple of seasons ago. Like Brighton are not a team that are going to finish second, and it's just the complete, like Ericsson as a false nine, you Diego Dalot like strolling back for Brighton's second goal. It's just like the whole thing. It just seems like the dressing room is still, not in a good place, David. When I just look at Erik ten Hag, and you're the expert here, I'm not, but he just looks like to me like a guy who's a coach, who is probably a very, very good coach, who's been brought in to, fix a lot of the way that they play and press more. And Ronaldo obviously is not suited to that game. But it seems like he's got a lot on his plate with transfers. A lot of the players United are being linked with, he has got a past association with. And it just seems that above him, there doesn't seem to be the infrastructure to support him.
No, there doesn't. And the big thing with managers nowadays, there's always that little thing of, is he a manager, is he a head coach? Certainly with the manager, you've got to manage expectations upwards. And I think that's where United probably have missed the boat, kind of appointing a director of football who can manage the board and work. Like there was big talks of Van der Sar coming. I don't know what happened there. Obviously that's Manchester United's business, but like I just look at Manchester United, and there's far too many players that are not good enough to play for Manchester United. They're on far too much money. They're tied down to long-term contracts. They have no real desire to move on. I think they're at a club that is fallen off the face of the earth, which is remarkable to say, because Manchester United still, to me, in my mind, is still one of the biggest clubs in the world and still has a massive draw and appeal. Like people listening are well aware, I'm a Liverpool fan. To go and play for Manchester United in front of 80,000 people week in, week out, be loved and cherished by those fans, like that stuff, you can only dream of. Like you look at, you're speaking of Dalot, he's nowhere near good enough to play for Manchester United. I stand by what I said. I know people will be quick to point out Harry Maguire is my pal because we did play together and we're good mates, but I think Harry is good enough. I think his confidence is so up and down the past 2 seasons. He's become like an ongoing meme online, where every goal, I'm arguing on Twitter last week, if you look at the first goal, Welbeck, in my opinion, and I've spoke to other coaches about it and they all agree with me, but then again, that is the joys of Twitter. Like Welbeck runs off Martinez, he doesn't track the run, he doesn't speak to Maguire, he's a yard too deep at the start, then steps up. Welbeck's got good pace, gets in behind, then he hesitates to close him down where he should sprint, get his back to goal. But it's kind of basic errors in defending. Like you look at the left back situation, Luke Shaw, like he had, was it the Euros? It was the Euros, wasn't it? There, he was fantastic. He went back to United, and I don't know what's happened to him. Because I still think Luke Shaw is a very good, fullback. I think he brings an awful lot to, he can bring an awful lot to that team. Like you're still looking at McTominay and Fred. I do like Scott. I think he's industrious. I think he works really hard. He just needs a simple message of to keep it easy. Don't complicate. I seen him last week trying to do flicks and back heels and that, and I'm saying that's not your game. Fred, I don't know. I really don't. 1 minute he's brilliant. Next minute he can't pass a ball 5 yards. You look at Rashford, I don't know what's happened to him. It looks like he's no confidence. He was a player, I remember, like I played right back a couple of times against him, where he was constantly threatening me in behind, looking to run behind. Now he comes short all the time. He wants the ball to feet. like dribbling, in my opinion, the hardest skill in football is to beat someone 1v1. And he's lost the confidence to do that. He should be looking, because he's got blistering pace, to look to run in behind, cause problems. I do feel Bruno is probably doing a bit too much. He's trying to carry the entire team and club on his back, where he's trying outrageous pass all the time. I think Eriksen will help an awful lot because he's great guile and vision, and his pass choice is nearly always accurate. You've got the dilemma with Ronaldo, an incredible player. There's no doubting that. Like, I think he gave them a massive lift when he came on the other day. I think Erik ten Hag has to probably rethink his approach. Of course, I've seen him speak about where he wants to press, but you can't do that with Cristiano. But what Cristiano will get you is 20 to 25 goals a season. So you have to find a way to slightly adjust your style and get him in there. Another one, Jadon Sancho, 70 plus million. I think he had 8 goals, 5 assists, something like that last season. I want more from him. He looks like he's not really too fussed. Probably picking up an absolute fortune, and his performance hasn't been good enough. There's a whole host of problems, and there are probably 10 names have gone through, but I could keep going. Like De Gea, don't know what the story with him. Like, 1 minute he was captain United, and then all of a sudden he spat his dummy out and he was on the way out, and then he comes back and he puts in incredible performances. He's hot and cold. It's like the whole thing is a complete mess. And now they've obviously there's been a lot of talk of Sir Alex rejoining. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Is that a bad thing? Maybe. Like, do they need to move away from that? Because he will still have a huge say, a huge pull. Like, only time will tell. Will that be a good reappointment if he's there? But they just, like, it's going to be a tough few years for United fans. They need to clear out a lot of deadwood, and they need to sign the right players. Like, I was thinking, if I was involved in the Manchester United recruitment, what player would I look at to bring in? Like, the first name that actually came to mind was like a Jared Bowen.
Would not be a Declan Rice, no?
Well, of course you'd aim for the 6, but I'm also looking at realistic targets. Will Declan go to United? I think Declan is probably has one eye on Chelsea, another on Liverpool, and of course City will always have that interest in him. I think he'll see himself going to bigger and better things than Manchester United at the moment. Like, of course, I completely agree with you. They're crying out for number 6. Like, Rabiot, I wouldn't touch him. Okay, look, he's an incredible player, but it's just so much nonsense with him off the pitch. I don't think you need him. When you need players to roll their sleeves up and fight hard, I don't think Rabiot's one of them types. I think you'd be signing the wrong player. We had it a few years ago at Hull when we signed Ben Arthur. No doubting his ability.
We had that. You told a story about it.
Yeah. Like, there's one. Like, then you're talking about Arnautovic to United.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break. This is Manchester United we're talking about. You need to be signing. Like, there was that all laughing thing about Roy when he said sign Harry Kane, and people kind of laughed at him. But, like, it's still Manchester United. Like, there still is a huge draw, and I stand by what I said before. Like, a lot of players would still want to go and play for Manchester United, and they have to, as a club, kind of stick their chest out and pay the money for these top quality players that are good. Not only the good players, but the good people, and they'll help the team and they'll help the club and they'll lift the fan base. Because at the moment, like, if you're a Manchester United fan, you're looking at your club being linked to Arnautovic and Rabiot, then not for me.
I just do wonder, though, like, David would definitely know better than me in terms of the draw of Manchester United, but, like, so this is the 10th season since they won the league under Ferguson, so this is the post-Ferguson era, and this is the 10th season. In the other 9 seasons, JD, the majority of them, they didn't even finish in the Champions League spots, and they were essentially in irrelevance in the title race despite finishing second a couple of times in all those years. So the narrative of Manchester United for the last decade is that they're a team that struggled to get into the Champions League, are basically an irrelevance in the title race now, and that's what they are. They're not the team that I hated as a young kid supporting Liverpool under Alex Ferguson, who basically won every league, and they're not the team that can attract the best players anymore, because if you...
That can change. Because it's Man United, like Liverpool in the 90s, they're not in exactly the same position.
Yeah, but it'll take a lot of time, and this thing, because they're Man United, I don't know, man. It's a dysfunctional club under the Glazers. I think we can say that with a reasonable degree of certainty. And the problems are so deep now that it almost feels like a waste of time just talking about them every week, because we're literally bleeding our life away talking about a team that may or may not get into the Europa League next season. Every year. Every year it's like Man United this, Man United that, as like an ode to the people I grew up with. Well, the reality is Man United are an irrelevance now, apart from if you want to debate who may or may not get into the Europa League group stages. That's it.
It's more of a bigger discussion about
and mismanagement.
No, but it's one of the biggest clubs in the world that won like 13 Premier League titles under Ferguson. Like they won the Champions League twice, and the fall from grace has been, and it's almost become comical. And even talking about it is quite depressing, to be honest.
It is.
And if you're a Man United fan, you must be pretty deflated about the whole bloody thing. But it's just become this entertainment brand that is going through this constant weekly crisis, and it's just hard to believe how it could get so bad. And like I think any top player would go to Man United if say if they got Conte in, which they should have, and like not getting Conte in was like once again bad management from an executive level. But if they got Conte in, because they've spent over £1 billion, and if they were going to spend the money, you might be able to attract better players that will go, I'll play for Conte. Harry Kane wanted to leave Spurs just over a year ago. Now they're talking about him signing a new contract, and they still haven't won any trophies.
Is there a mutiny coming from the fans in terms of the ownership and what?
Well,
the
it's
club
already
has become?
happened. Didn't it happen a few months ago?
It has, but like, has it had a major impact? Like, will there be mass protests at games? I
think it probably is going that way.
It probably is. I mean, Liverpool had to suffer a long, long time in those early 90s, and I'm looking at David James on the TV today. He's 52 now. I remember David James, a young keeper, and Liverpool had to come through those years where they were basically totally knocked off their perch by Fergie. It took them a long, long time. It's not going to be an easy fix for Manchester United, and I'm genuinely not sure what draw Manchester United is to the likes of, say, Declan Rice now. Where would Declan Rice willy-nilly go to Manchester United? And
I don't think...
It seems mad to think that, but I don't know.
As David said, like, he's probably, the Chelsea...
He's better than that.
The Chelsea thing... I just have this feeling he might end up there because there's something about his story coming full circle from being released by Chelsea as a kid, and some of the influences in his life you'd imagine would be probably pushing him that way. But just I know you're friends with him, David, so not to sort of go into it too much, but I'm even looking at the experience that Harry Maguire is having at Manchester United, like booed at a pre-season tour game down in Australia or something as part of this global brand. And I don't know, like, I kind of wonder, other players are probably looking at players at Manchester United becoming these memes, as you say, or just sort of pilloried in a particular way. And I don't know, it sort of just seems maybe an unattractive experience for them. They might think that at other clubs you might be, there might be a little bit more protection from some of this sort of scrutiny that at Manchester United you can't escape. Or it seems to be that the players are at the forefront now of the, I don't know, they're getting sort of whipped from all sides.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. And like, you look at Manchester City with the size of the squad they had. If a player is under a bit of stick or is not performing well, Pep can just rotate them in and rotate them out. Like, he just makes substitutes in games, or he's, we call it Pep roulette, where like you don't know what players are going to play. And the problem with Manchester United is, like, you kind of more or less can pick your 9 or 10. Even if they're not performing week in, week out, because they don't have the depth, they don't have the quality. Like, I do feel for Harry because, some of his performances haven't been as bad as they've been made out. But one error, like, unfortunately for him, has cost him goals at times, and it will be picked up more. But you look at that team, and that is the big problem I have with, certainly with Manchester United, is the lack of leadership. Certainly you look around the change room, kind of like, have you got those, I'll use the word ego, but not in a bad way, but those leadership qualities that can, pick a team up and drive it on. Obviously there was massive calls towards the back end of the season. The captaincy should have been taken off with Maguire and it should have been given to Ronaldo. Is Ronaldo the right type of character to be captain? Look, he's one of the best players that's ever played the game. He's a very selfish individual. I've no problem with that. That's why he scored 800 plus goals in his career. But is he the right type? Like, obviously there was all talks when he took over and people were admiring the way he works before training, after training, how he eats, his diet, everything. He mightn't be a great captain. I don't know. I've not been in and around him to know. Like, certainly with Portugal, yes, he's captain, but you're also playing with a group of your countrymen who are all there for one objective, to represent your country. It's quite easy to follow his lead that way, because you only meet up, 4 or 5 times a season. It is a massive thing. I use Liverpool. Like, you look at their team, Alisson, good guy. Then you've got Robertson, captain of Scotland, Van Dijk, captain of the Netherlands. You've got Milner, vice captain, who I say if you spoke to anyone in football wouldn't say he's a bad person. You've got Henderson, who's obviously captain of Liverpool. Salah's captain of Egypt. They've got a whole host of captains and good quality leaders in that change room. That's the big thing I look at United. Who is going to drag them when it's down? Like, they're crying out, like, as we touched on, JD touched on there, a 6. They're crying out for a Roy Keane. That's what they're, that type of player and that type of leader to inspire the players that will take no nonsense. Because some of the stuff those Manchester United players get away with is mind-boggling. They think you're blessed to be paid week in, week out to play football as a career, but to turn in some of those performances and to give off that illusion that you don't really care. Like, that's the frustrating thing I look at when I look at Manchester United, because you are very privileged. You need to, knuckle down and put a shift in.
53106 Sean says, hi lads, the problem with United is they keep picking terrible managers. Klopp, Conte, Pep, Tuchel would sort them out in 6 weeks.
They wouldn't, though. It's not as simple as that, because the dressing room is kind of half toxic, and there's so many players short, and it's not complex in terms of, it's not straightforward in terms of the ownership. So no, like, Jesus himself couldn't go in there, not the player, but Jesus himself couldn't go in there and turn it around overnight. It's not a water and wine story. It's not. It's a club that, like, it's going to take a long time.
Actually, on reflection.
Yeah. Jesus, probably turn it down as well. Actually.
Well, I think, to me, it's so hot now, we're probably turning the wine into water this evening, to be honest. But 53106. Remember, lads, Liverpool ended up at the steps of the High Court, saved at the 11th hour from oblivion. That's how bad it can get for Man United. I'm a Liverpool fan, but it really could get much worse than it gets better for United.
JD, can I make a point there, right? Like, Johnny, you touched on Conte, right? And JD, you're a Spurs fan. You'll be closer on the pulse with it more than I will. The big thing Spurs fans all wanted was Conte to be backed. And Conte has this thing where I have full control of everything. That's his big thing, and that's always been Conte's thing. I think if he'd gone into United and was given full control of everything, he'd have tidied that mess up. I really do, because he sets standards, and you can see that there. There was talks of Ten Hag with his rules and his discipline and what he wanted. But, like, the great point is Harry Kane wanted out. They brought in a world-class manager, and he's gone, here, pal, you're going nowhere, and we're going to do things my way, and you're going to benefit. You're going to benefit from it. I think if he'd gone into United, I think there was a big thing of Neville saying it wasn't the right fit. But who is the right fit for Manchester United? And I think a manager like Conte would have gone in and sorted that entire mess out. I really do.